According to Brundle, Verstappen should have been in pole position, but the Dutchman had to abandon his final pole lap 2 corners before the finish to have enough fuel left for the mandatory technical checks. Q, an extremely unhappy championship leader, and he let the team know in no uncertain terms, Brundle writes in his column for Sky Sports. Barely underneath the surface of the calm and serene 2022 Max 2.0 is still quite a temper, Brundle continued. However, the British analyst believes there is something to be said for Verstappen's fierce reaction after the disappointment of qualifying. My take on that, as he heads to an inevitable second championship, is just how much pain a lost pole position and potential victory means to him despite his and the team's current dominance, the former Formula One driver explained. Fernando Alonso says he's proud of Alpine's performance this season, but the Spaniard was also critical of the really unacceptable amount of points he has lost this year through reliability issues. Alonso's recent run of 10 consecutive top 10 finishes was interrupted in Monza due to a water pressure issue. But an engine problem also put paid to his efforts after just 20 laps in Singapore last weekend. Considering the succession of DNFs suffered by the 2-time world champion in the early part of his campaign, Alonso estimated his current shortfall in terms of points at approximately 60. Contrary to several of Alonso's rivals, Alpine did not elect to add a fresh power unit to the Spaniard's pool of hardware at the races, in Belgium and in Italy, that preceded Singapore. But the 41-year-old doesn't believe that his DNF in Sunday's race was rooted in high engine mileage. "I think the engine mileage it was okay," he said. "Even I think Esteban had a problem and has a newer engine. So I don't think that this is down to that. But I will have to put a new engine in the next few races for sure. We'll see when. So yeah, that's more points that we will lose." The sport radically altered a car's aerodynamics this season, with a greater emphasis placed on ground effect downforce and the removal of a number of top face components to create greater racing action by allowing cars to follow more closely. Whilst the changes have been seen as an overall success, Vettel has now thrown into question whether the targets set have been achieved. The Pirelli tires also underwent an overhaul in construction, with 18-inch tires replacing the 13-inch models of previous eras. The rubber has proven difficult to prepare during qualifying, with a number of drivers unhappy with the small operating window presented by the compounds. "They have always been tricky, let's say it like this," said Vettel when addressing the tires. "The big push this year was to make the cars able to overtake and follow more closely. I don't think there is a big difference. We follow closer, but we have less drag, so you need to be closer to overtake. The tires, the big target was to allow more racing, and I don't think there is a big difference either. I won't say it has failed, but certainly, a lot of effort has gone in and not all the effort came out." Pierre Gasly says AlphaTauri's performance was not good enough as he slipped from 7th place to finish 10th in the Singapore Grand Prix. Starting from 7th, Gasly held position in the first part of the race, dropping behind Max Verstappen after a spell but then moving back to his starting spot when Fernando Alonso retired. However, the Frenchman was the only driver in the top 11 positions to pit for slick tires when Lewis Hamilton went off track on lap 33, with the majority coming in a lap or two later as conditions improved and Gasly dropping behind Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel as a result. "If you don't do a good job, then normally I think it's fair to say so, simple as that," Gasly said. "I think we didn't do a good job. We were 7th, ahead of the 2 Aston Martins, had track position. We had everything in our hands and we threw it away because we decided to box too early. And there was no communication, no dialogue, which I don't fully understand why. We took a gamble in a moment where we didn't need to. So we boxed, everybody stayed out on track, and we got overcut by 4 cars. Obviously, I'm very disappointed for all the team and all of us because we're dropping to 9th in the team's championship. Daniel was behind us, far behind, stayed out on track, as we should have done, and finished P5. So it's 9 points that we lost and 9 important points. I'm just sad, and not happy with our performance." Williams Racing's Alex Albon retired on lap 26 of the Singapore Grand Prix after a lockup saw him crash into the barrier at turn 8. In 16th place before the incident occurred, the Tagg driver lost his front wing and consequently took to the pits, ultimately unable to rejoin the race. Albon admitted that the crash was driver error and a direct result of the track's damp conditions, which made it hard to gauge how the brakes would react. "It's a bit frustrating and was difficult out there tonight. It's confusing with nothing different from the previous lap. However, I just locked up on the front left with the wet, making it difficult to predict the brakes. Whilst there wasn't an issue and ultimately it comes down to driver error, the brakes are very tricky in the wet and it's hard to get them in the right window. Though disappointed in the end result, Albon wasn't expecting a points finish for the team at Marina Bay. He will, however, be looking to fight for a better finish in the second half of the doubleheader, the Japanese Grand Prix. We knew coming into Singapore we likely wouldn't be fighting for points, so whilst it's difficult, we can look to Japan and come back fighting. It is far from certain that Schumacher will keep his seat at Haas next year. Although teammate Kevin Magnussen is already certain for next year, things remain eerily quiet around Schumacher. According to Tagg, his future can only be secured with better results. Mick needs results. I hope the exact analysis will be done within the team. He was well on track for his first race in Singapore. For me, he clearly deserves a place in Formula One. But I think it will be tight in Singapore this weekend. Schumacher saw his chance for points go up in smoke when he collided with George Russell. The Haas driver eventually finished in 13th place. It is a recurring theme for Schumacher. He has only managed to score points twice this season, leaving him in a disappointing 16th place in the championship.